and I was able to know him for the last 15 years. And I can tell you that Prophet TB Joshua lived like it was his last day on earth. You know, he often says, live each day as if it were your last, and one day you'll be right. His whole life is about prayer. Everything about his life is about prayer. If you go to the church there, he has many prayer rooms over at the prayer mountain, a lot of places where he goes to for prayer. And he spends hours and hours and hours in prayer, reading his Bible, communicating to God, and just that's where he built his relationship with God. I can remember many times I would follow the prophet to the prayer mountain. And, while he was at the church, he'll be attending to people from all over the world, and also, praying for the sick, doing the ministry of healing, deliverance, prophecy, and preaching the gospel, the good news of Jesus Christ to the world. And he also attended to many visitors all day, also had time to teach the disciples. But after working all day, he would still go to the prayer mountain at night. And I would follow him to the prayer mountain, 11, 12 o'clock at night. He would go into his prayer room. And there, he would be praying, seeking the face of God. So he would be inside of his prayer room, and I would be just outside with some other person. And he would keep praying there throughout the whole night, not even go to his bed. The time he was meant to go to rest, to sleep on his bed, that's the time he would be in his prayer room, praying, seeking the face of God. And he would come out of the prayer room 6 o'clock in the morning at the prayer mountain and say, okay, Justin, let's go back to the church. And would return back to the church, and he would have his shower, eat his breakfast, and then he would do it all over again. See people from all over the world, take time to teach the disciples, take time to to do the administration of the church. And then in the nighttime, he would go back again to the prayer mountain, praying at the prayer mountain throughout the entire night, from midnight through to 6 in the morning to 7 in the morning. And I'd be very close by, lying there on the ground, and he would just call us over. And he'd say to me, it was like, after praying all night, it'd be like 6, 7 in the morning. And he'd call me over, Justin, he says, can you see the reason why, can you see what it takes to operate at a very high level? And I said, yes, sir, it's a life of sacrifice. And he said, yeah, can you see why there are not as many people operating at that level? And I said, yes, because it's a very uncomfortable lifestyle that you have to live to be able to operate at that higher level.
States and to different places around the world. And I worked closely with him, kind of like a personal assistance, if you may, in a place called 5 Story. It's the 5th story of the building. That's why it was called 5 Story. And that's where he lived. It was his personal apartment. And I lived in the same apartment with him. So his bedroom was here and I lived in the room right next to it. So I was basically the last person he saw before he fell asleep and the first person he saw when he woke up most days. And it was a real privilege. And there was, the lessons and the things that I've learned and seen in his life, they are too many to mention in a short episode like this one. So we remember many examples of maybe one of the disciples struggling with the deliverance out in the service while he's in the office watching, and they are praying, casting fire, and the demon is just manifesting but not really surrendering. And he would just send a message and I would be with him in the office, and he would say, go and tell that disciple just to touch the lower back, just touch the lower back. And I would be like, okay. And I would run into the service and I would tell them touch the lower back of the demon. And they would just go and touch there. In the moment that they touch the lower back, the demon would begin to surrender, and the end process of the deliverance will start. Because that was when I realized, that powers and demons can sit in different parts of the body. It's not just, I have power in the eyes to seduce. It's actually, the demon actually sits in different parts of your body physically to focus on the reason we are there. For example, when we were there wasn't actually much permission or focus given on dating, for example. Okay, he would tell us that you're here, and as long as you are here for Jesus, let your focus be on Jesus. I'm not forbidding you from dating, but if you want to date, go finish up here, then go home, and date. But while you're here, the focus here is to press in and to get close to Jesus. Okay, so that's one of many things that he really taught. Disciples in the midst there were really, honestly, wicked people. Okay, they were really evil people. They were like,
they needed help too. They were there because they needed help.
Yeah, exactly. They were backed by a lot of these kind of things. So, and I would ask, like, why doesn't he separate the good from the bad? Why doesn't he keep only the good ones? And then he would say that, if there are no bad ones, how would the good learn how to handle bad people? How would the good learn how to change the bad people if everyone around you are just good? So when you get out there, then you will not know how to handle bad people who are basically, so, Prophet TB Joshua would go to sleep really late, for example, 4 or 5 in the morning, and he would wake up like 7, 8, 3, 2, 4 hours, sometimes 5 hours sleep. And basically, the moment that he wakes up, he's in the other room. We are in another room here, a couple of guys working with him, taking care of the apartment and everything. The moment that you hear the floor creaking or something, you got to be up and ready. Like he's going to want a breakfast. He's going to want his morning tea, he's going to want. So we learn to always be alert. Okay. Watching and praying got a whole different meaning.
I was nervous because I thought, oh man, I'm already in a little bit of trouble. I don't know how I'm going to dig myself out of the situation that I'm in. And so he invited me in to come and see him. And there was a couple of the other disciples there, and he had a computer up, and it had some pictures of me from when I was younger. I don't even know how. Maybe he had seen an old Facebook or something like that. And I thought, oh man, now I'm really good. This problem is just going to go deeper. But it was actually really sweet what he said to me. He pulled up the pictures and he said, I want you to take a look at yourself and see how far you've come. And he told me, he's like, the thing that I really love about you is your ability to forgive and how much you've forgiven. And so I had gotten to this point where I was I was nervous. I was kind of afraid because I had done some things to get myself in trouble. And I thought I was going to, when you're about to see the person that, you made mistakes against, and you're expecting to get, talked to. And it was just, he welcomed me with open arms and basically told me that, he kind of looked past the mistakes that I had made, and he focused on something that he really appreciated about me.
You may not notice that so much when you're just coming to the church or whatever, but when you're living with him, you notice that he notices everyone. He takes note of you. He knows about your life situation. He knows about your family situation. And I mean, at times there were disciples under him living in the church there, between 150 to 300 people at times, sometimes it was less, sometimes it was more, but there were, from 30, 40 different countries, he was invited by this, interdenominational group of churches and everything, headed by a particular pastor and so on. And they invited him, and they had, prepared the best hotel for him and everything, and then when he found out that they had prepared a good hotel for him, he said, no, I'm not staying in a hotel. Can we look for a place somewhere away from the city, up in the mountains, kind of isolated? I need to be in prayer and fasting before the crusade meetings and so on. So we lived up in the mountains there, and especially in the one in Mexico, I remember because it was so up in the mountain that the toilet clogged, like there was no proper sewage. So the toilet, the
from
toilet
5-star in the city to 1-star in the mountain.
So the toilet clogged. So luckily, people like me were there. So we're like, okay, let's get to it. So we had to unclog the toilet, and there was no sewage system. It was like really up in the mountains, There wasn't even a kitchen there, if I remember correctly. They had to drive into the city just to get food because you couldn't even prepare food up. It was like a cottage in the wilderness, you know. And I remember the first couple of days, there wasn't even any hot water. There was no hot water there. It was ice cold water, and it was really tough. And I mean, Prophet TB Joshua, he was, you know, maybe he was more used to it than me and the other people who were there. But we were all like, oh, if this is the price to pay, we don't know. And someone may listen and say like, oh yeah, cold water, it's not that tough. But when you're really up high in the mountain and it's already cold, like it wasn't warm during the days. You woke up, you're freezing outside, you know, and then you have to walk out, you know, so to a outdoor shower and everything. It was really tough. And he chose that over living in a 5-star hotel, having a 5-star menu, having a private chef, you know, all that. He chose to live in the mountain because he knew that the pleasures of this world could distract him prior to a crusade. And he told us, this is the reason why. I need to be focusing on the things of God and the things of the Word of God before. So he would pray a lot. He would basically all day, like let's say the crusade started on a Friday, he might have arrived on a Wednesday or a Tuesday or something. For those days before, all day he would be reading his notes, reading his Bible, preparing the message.
I was noticing that the ushers weren't really like doing their job properly, or didn't quite know what they were doing. They weren't following him like they used to. They were kind of like waiting at a distance on the other side, and people were falling down under the anointing. Nothing was happening. So I started going behind him. This was in the early years, I think before Emmanuel TV, maybe 2004 or 5. And like just being there to help the people to the floor or whatever was going on. At one moment, he just caught his eye with my eye and just went, I was so happy that day. I was so happy that day. But that's just like what you were saying. He would notice things. Even in his present surroundings or any other way, he would notice if someone was doing something, and he knew how to encourage you. He knew how to make you feel just over the moon and happy. He was a source of joy to all the disciples and all the followers, even the workers there. I mean, he showed that in his documentary himself when he himself cleaned all the church benches. There were thousands of those wooden benches. The camera doesn't do it justice just to how deep and how long and how hard a job that was. And he cleaned it all by hand. He cleaned the bathrooms himself. He cleaned the toilets himself. And then a few years later, he has a huge ministry and a huge team. No one's going to think TB Joshua is going to go and clean the toilets ever again. But the record is there. So with him at that particular time, I think that was 2006 or so, or 5. And those days, he was like the big international crusades were these were one of the first ones. I think Botswana was first. This was the second or so. And then he was like, right, gearing up for this. This is going to be amazing. But, you know, he hadn't done lots, so he's not like super experienced at it as he was towards the end of his time there. And so first night, we were like, yes, it's going to be awesome. Let's get this done. We were praying. We were ready. We were fasting all day. We're like, yes, everyone's ready. Everyone's hyped for it. He puts on his suit. He gets ready. He goes out the door and then stops in the elevator. Ed, go and put the air conditioning on in my bedroom and wait for me there. I was like, we're going to the crusade. It's 7 o'clock. Air conditioner in the bedroom. Anyway, you know, within a blink of an eye, I've gone. I did whatever he told me to do. And I was waiting there. He comes back in, takes his suit off, takes his shirt off, lies down on the bed and goes to sleep. Right, 7 o'clock, we're supposed to be there. We were leaving the hotel at 10 to 7. It's about 15, 20-minute drive to the place. I'm thinking, oh boy, what's going on now? I think he slept for a good hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. When he got up, in a flash and flow, right, quick, fast, let's go. We went there, did the crusade. You can watch the documentary. It was spectacular. Among the crusades, the level of prophecy that he gave there, the kind of miracles that happened in Singapore were next level. After the whole thing, he spent, I think, 1 or 2 days before leaving, and we asked him, so what happened on the first day that we were on time, and then we waited 2 hours and everything? He said, yes, I hadn't heard a vision from God about the prophecies I was going to give, only that I was going to prophesy. And anything more than that. So I was like, okay, what do I do? As I was going out the door, he said, you really want an answer? Go and sleep. I was like, okay. As I slept, God gave me a vision, and I saw everyone that I was going to prophesy to that day, and all the details I was going to prophesy to them about, and more. So if I hadn't obeyed the voice of God before going out at man's time and just gone there, I would have just done the prayer and healing and whatever. But that level of prophecy came because I was obedient. When it wasn't convenient for me, God said, wait, sleep, do this, spend time with me. And I did. And because of that, the prophecies and everything happened at that crusade. So, yeah, that was just another example of how he would always share things like this with us, the disciples, to just let us know that this is what it takes to follow God. God doesn't always make it easy for you. Even when you're already in the office of a prophet, it still takes daily obedience. And often it's harder to be obedient when you're in a position than when you're not. When you're just a follower, it should be much easier for you because there's much less responsibility. No one's waiting in a stadium packed full of people for you to arrive on time. But even with that, his results were always much greater than if he just went by himself. He always went by the guidance of the Holy Spirit. And that was, to me, one of the biggest lessons that he tried to show us in part of his everyday living. He would wait to hear from God before doing things. He would actually wait and not do things until God told him to. How many people do you see doing that in the world today? No. Yeah. By 9 o'clock, service starts. By 11:30, the church is closing. Everyone clear out. Second service is coming in. That wasn't the way. So yeah, that humble, obedient heart was, I think, one of the biggest lessons. And that ties in with love. That ties in with humility. The humility to obey someone, obey God, and obey someone if you're in a mentor-mentee relationship. But after that, who is your real mentor? It's actually God using someone. So by obeying them, you're more or less, he's teaching you how to obey God.
Bedroom, and he's like, because normally, he would sleep on his bed in the church, but when we got to the bedroom in the hotel, he's like, oh yeah, I'm not gonna sleep on this bed. Do you have a pillow or something? I'll just sleep on the ground next to it. And we were like, what? Man of God, you can't sleep on the floor. We got a crusade. What if you get like pain in your back or something, He's like, no. I don't want to sleep on anything that, he just wanted to be as holy as he possibly could be before God. So like anything that could have unnecessary interaction with, other people's, like he was, and I'm not saying that he was trying to he was not like a germ, like scared of germs or anything like that, but it was purely out of, the spiritual point of view that he actually told me and he actually told us that he didn't want to sleep on the bed in a hotel because it hadn't been sanctified per se, Yes, the sheets are clean, but who knows how many sexual sins, immorality, fornication and stuff like that had happened there. And that is his faith. I'm not saying that every Christian needs to follow that, because Prophet TB Joshua wouldn't sleep on a bed in a hotel before a conference. That's his faith. That's his deal with God, okay? But I'm just sharing that because it's interesting, it's memories that we had. And he said that hey, I don't want to defile my body in any way. I want to live as holy as I can, to focus on the things of God before the crusade and everything. And the interesting thing was that at that crusade, the moment that the last crusade finished, he's like, okay, now God can give me a little bit of break. So he now slept on the bed after the crusade finished. So literally, at the level of a man that he was, at his caliber, his way of rewarding himself for a successful crusade was to sleep on a bed.
But it's true. That's the kind of man he was. Yes.
Yeah. He wasn't about rewarding himself or hey, let me have a good time now. There was never. God was his only reward. Literally, God was his only reward. So yeah,
he felt more rewarding to give the disciples time off. Hey, go and have 3 weeks, a week in a hotel. Go and have 3 days here or there, or just tell me where you want to go, or there's any countryside, or have one of the translators guide you somewhere. Go and have a week on me. he was that would be much more rewarding for him. And he would say, right, can we get a plane? Can we go back home? I've got to go back to the church. It was like, you're not going to even see the city. You're not going to see anything.
Yeah, literally. No. In
Never
Colombia, he didn't even spend a day vacation after the crusade. He just went straight back. And, you know.
Same with South Korea. He basically went straight back.
He didn't even went sightseeing. He didn't even buy a souvenir. Nothing. Just straight back to the mountain to pray, you know. And there was
the people left in the church as well. I mean, because not every disciple got to follow him, and not all the workers got to go with him for the event. So it was often like, right. And every day he would call the church to find out how things were, if there were any issues you needed to handle or whatever. So I think there was still that kind of fatherly love he had for everyone. That I've been with you guys for the 3 days or the week or however long the crusade is. Everyone else is still there. They haven't seen me. I've got to go back to them too. Yeah. So I never completely landed that it was one or the other. I was always like, it's all those reasons all at once. And he never said otherwise. So I was like, okay, fine.
Exactly. What a life.
On crusades. And there was one time that we went to Israel, and I remember there was only just a couple of us. And so when it was time to go back, I remember I was in the elevator. It was me and TB Joshua and another disciple. And the elevator had like see-through doors. And he told Ricard, he said, okay, you stay behind. It's time for you to enjoy. And I remember we were in the elevator and you could see, and Ricard was standing outside and he was waving goodbye. And I remember TB Joshua said, do you see how happy he is? He finally gets to enjoy. So he knew there was, those people who they were with him everywhere. They rarely got a break. I mean, the closer you were with TB Joshua, the harder that you worked, the more that you had to do, and so people didn't realize that how intense that it was in those times. So I just kind of remember being like, oh, this is the one time that I'm the one that gets to go straight back. It was an honor.
Welcome to the club. Yeah.
Imagine I'm in Lagos, I'm receiving a WhatsApp message that tells me why I'm there. The only thing that I did not want to agree with is the issue of the prophetic party. It made me not even want to analyze the message. What is she dreaming now? And I've never read that message since that day. The second time I read it, it's on Sunday morning. And the message is said that the prophet called man of God in a dream. I was told that he called the man of God to Nigeria because he's about to pass on to glory. So he wanted to see him on to prepare before his departure. What is that? He stands up. So between us, we are separated by this marble table. Between us, we are facing each other like this. Say, come, let me pray for you. Well, I stand up there, he lay his hand, he hold my hand, fell back on the chair. Suddenly I look at him, I start shaking now. While I'm shaking this, his eyes changed. And I'm asking myself, what's going on now? I've started to cry now. Tears are just falling. Uncontrollably, I'm looking at him. Now I'm shaking. He put his hand again now. I want to avoid him now. I can't move. My body is moving, but my head now, my eyes are like being magneted by his eyes. And I'm shaking, I'm crying. But at that time, I'm asking myself, why am I crying? Why am I doing this? What is this? Why am I crying? He keeps coming back, put his hand again, leave me there, this. After until he finished there. After when he finished there, tears are just rolling this, and he said, don't worry, I will follow up with everything we have spoken about. And he wrote everything. He took those papers and everything. And I went out. He gave me anointing water. I sat there. I'm still, otherwise, I go, I'm not talking to anybody. I went to my room, spent an hour there. When I come back, I joined them. Prophet Cedric is, hey, And I will ask, what happened? You are crying. Kerem, I don't know. For 18 years, Prophet has been praying for me whenever I go there. I've spent time with him, I've lived there, I've this and everything. But it has never happened that I cry when he's praying. I don't know why. Even myself, I was asking myself, why Adam is crying? To say, what is this? I was even accusing myself in the process. What am I crying? You keep looking at me this. It is now I realize that the prophet knew everything. That you are seeing me for the last time. My spirit was testifying, but my mind could not. I would say God blocked everything, hide it from me, but he allowed my spirit to grasp that the reason why you are crying like this, you will never see him. These are the last prayer. The last time he's laying his hand on your head, pray with you like this, talking like this in the natural. It's now I realize that.
The Christian does not consider death to be his end, but the end of his trouble, the end of tribulation. Whether you die young or old, no matter the nature of death is sure to come.
Time for everything. The time to come here. And the time to return home after service. Good morning.